So, you were born in Hong Kong, and at 4, I believe, you moved to New York. At such a young age, it can be difficult to adapt. I wanted to ask you how you dealt with that feeling. Did you ever feel like an outsider while growing up?
Growing up in a foreign country, I think it's totally normal that you feel like you're an outsider because that's just the reality of the situation. So yes, sometimes I felt like an outsider, but sometimes you can even feel like an outsider in the country where you're born. So everything is very relative, and it's about adapting, it's about continuing and going forward. So I was an outsider for a little bit, but then I adapted.
And also, when you're young, you change, your appearance changes, and the behavior of people around you can also switch. Some people, especially girls, can feel insecure about their appearance. Have you ever experienced such feeling when you reached your teenage years?
Let's just say that I think adolescence is equal to insecurity. So I think that is a worldwide feeling that every adolescent feels in any country all over the world. It's part of growing up. And so, yes, I did have feelings of of insecurity during my adolescence. But I think also what made it even more pronounced was the fact that when I was growing up, there wasn't that much diversity in the media. And this is something that is kind of my main reason for being in this industry, is showing that there are diverse people and that we can all feel like we belong.
And how did you deal with that?
When I was growing up, well, because there weren't that many role models, I guess when we grew up, we went to church, we had school, and we had family friends. So I think that it was really about finding the people that you're comfortable with, that make you feel that you can be yourself. And it was not always easy, but you managed to find that one person at least. So that's how I dealt with it. And I did read a lot. So that was my way of evading and traveling through books.
You said when you lived in New York that you got hand-me-downs from church and you would mix and match what you got there. Can you describe to us one of your most memorable outfits you can remember?
Oh, I don't remember exactly, but I just remember the feeling because it felt like it was Christmas, because we didn't grow up with a lot of money. So my mom had 4 children, and so, when we got hand-me-downs from church, it was like going into the vintage store. Like in Paris, you have the vintage stores you can buy by the kilo. Yeah. So you almost like you're going through the bags and you're finding what could go together. And sometimes they didn't always match, but we were happy. So I think I remember having like pants that were like checkered pants or polka dot. I don't remember. It was like red and pink together or something. But it was just the feeling of it was like Christmas.
You once said, "I moved to Paris for love, and I've been called a hopeless romantic who looks at life through pink-colored glasses." Before moving to Paris and having that big change, did you have any concerns, any fear regarding that?
No, because I was a little bit older. The first time I went to Paris, I was like 19. And when you're 19, you're very brave. You don't have... your inhibitions are a little bit less. You feel like you're the king of the universe and you can have all the adventures you want. So I had this bravery, but I also have this optimism that I've always had since I'm a little child. And I think that's what got me through a lot of things, my optimism and my joy of life. So, so coming to Paris was just like an adventure. I've had many adventures in my life, and coming to Paris was an adventure. Yes, and for a hopeless romantic who looks, that was my brother who said that. Like, oh my God, you just have like pink-colored sunglasses on your eyes, all the time. But I think that's kind of nice because sometimes life is not easy, and when you see what happens now, all through all through humanity, there's always been hard times. So I think it's kind of nice to have pink-colored sunglasses to see.
So you built your new life, and now you have a family in which you play a pragmatic role. You work with your husband, you take care of your children, but as a hopeless romantic, how do you find balance between romance and reality?
I think one helps the other. Because being a hopeless romantic, optimist, and a goofball, because sometimes I am a little goofy, I think it really helps because I think it's good to be pragmatic and serious and take life seriously, but it's good to add in some joy and some goofiness and some lightness, because otherwise it makes life easier, let's say. It gets you through the harder times. When the kids were screaming because they wanted to eat, you got to get the dinner on the table. So it's just real life.
You mentioned your mother earlier. She raised 4 children, and your whole family by herself.
Yes.
What kind of person is she in your eyes, and what does she mean to you?
My mother is one of the strongest people I know. She found herself in a very difficult situation where she could have also just gave up, put her arms down, and moved back home to her family. She decided to stay in America to give us an opportunity that we would not have had maybe if we stayed in our country of origin. She had to overcome a lot and just push on, just get up out of bed every day. And I do have to say that she was an example and one of the motors of my own life change when I lost my husband, where I could have also, just decided to stay in bed and not get up and, take care of, what I needed to take care of. And I always, I remember not even thinking about it, but I think it's subconscious. I don't have the right to give up. My mother did all that to give me my life, so I don't have that right. So you get up out of bed and you keep living.
So you can say that she, not influenced, but she shaped the person that you are today.
Everyone who's ever been in my life has shaped me in one way or another.
Sometimes the influence of family members can be reflected in small things, like a fixed time to get up, a certain way to do some other things. Do you think she has influenced, again within quotes, influenced this to you?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, every parent, when you're raising your children, influences you in how you become an adult. That doesn't mean that, because nobody is perfect. When I raised my children, I may have instilled things that I thought were good and necessary, but as an adult, you don't always have to keep practicing what you were taught or what you were ingrained with, because it might not fit the lifestyle that you want, and it might not fit where you're living, how you're living, with whom you're living. So I don't think that the education you're given as a child is necessarily set in stone. I think that it's a good foundation that you can build upon and that you can modulate to fit what you need. I think the foundation is very important, but what you put on that foundation is really entirely up to you.
So we know you've lived in Hong Kong and then New York and now Paris, and you've visited many places in the world. Where would you consider home?
Right. Home, because I did live in different countries. I left when I was very young for a new country. I've had to always adapt. And so I don't really consider any one country my home, because it really depends on where you're comfortable, where your family is, where your work is. And we did mention that I really do believe that home is within yourself. So and these last 2 years, I have been having that famous love affair with myself, trying to really learn about who I am as a woman, who I want to be as a woman, not just existing as wife of, mother of, really being one with myself. And so my home is within this body of mine that was given to me.
That's a beautiful answer. And has your definition of home changed over the years?
Well, yes, of course, because home in Hong Kong was where I was born. So there you don't really have much choice because you just, that's where life put you. Home in New York was also a choice of my parents. So that was not really my choice either. But I think home in France is really where I chose to live. Because I found love, because this is where I decided to have my family. So we are fortunate, some people are fortunate enough to decide where they would want to call their home. So yeah, right now home is between Paris and New York.
You rarely retouch or edit your pictures. And usually on your social media you post pictures unfiltered, and it's very hard for many people to do that, because people always want to fight their own lines, freckles, whatever skin conditions, and they want to be seen as conventionally better looking. But you don't. You don't want to align with that mindset. You think that the real look is the best look, right?
I think that this is the look I've been given in life. I embrace it. Because, first of all, it costs a lot of money to do all those things. And I think that what I was saying before about having these 2 years and even my whole life, because everything that happens to us from when we're a child leads us to where we are now. And I really believe that in life things happen for a reason. So why would you go against something that's going to happen anyway? Don't worry about what you're looking like. As long as you're happy with yourself, have that love affair with yourself and find yourself.
About retouching your photos, did you always insist of not retouching them, or did you think about that recently and thought that, no, I'm not going to do this anymore?
As you know, I started this business 5 years ago. So I haven't been in it that long. And from the very beginning, I didn't feel the need to retouch. And to be honest, I didn't even know how to use Instagram. So, I mean, I don't know how to use the filters and all that. So I really, and I was told at the agency just to be myself. So being myself is what you see on my Instagram. So, yeah, I make it a point of honor not to retouch any of my own photos. When I do a selfie, like I did one this morning on my stories, I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth and my hair was all over the place. And I took a photo with a bag of products and that's what I put on. Because it was my good morning photo.
And even with professional photographers for fashion magazines?
With fashion magazines, you don't always have complete control. Mm-hmm. I'm not Naomi Campbell. But I do ask, like when they're putting makeup on, I do ask if it's really necessary to cover all my freckles, because I don't like to do that. I can understand that sometimes, the client would like that. But I prefer not to.
You once said that the most difficult part of your job was the catwalk when you started. What other difficulties did you encounter when you began?
When I started, I guess the most difficult thing besides the catwalk, but it's gotten much better, the catwalk, I have to say, with practice. But one of the most difficult things was looking at myself in photos or on the screen, because I don't like to look at myself in the mirror or in photos. So, which is kind of strange, I guess, being in this business. But when before we had a house with mirrors, many mirrors, but I would never look at myself because there's many more interesting things to look at. But yeah, so I think that was the most difficult. So when doing the work, I love being in front of the camera, but I don't necessarily like looking at my image.
This is very common. And how did you overcome that? How did you deal with it?
I think I'm able to detach myself from my image, if that makes sense, because sometimes, my work is something that's totally not me anyway, so it's like a different person. And without being schizophrenic or anything like that, but it's really, I really can take that step back and see the image without seeing myself, and I don't look at myself, I look at the whole composition of the photo. I look at the lighting, I look at the background, so that's more interesting.
The fashion industry continues to help shape the world's definition of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Always new beauty standards,
Mm-hmm.
Always new rules,
Mm-hmm.
especially women have to follow.
Yes.
How do you see these demands, and do you comply with them? Do you ignore? Do you challenge them?
In my private life, I work in the fashion industry, so I'm not going to bite the horse, bite the hand that feeds me, right? But I don't necessarily agree with everything. I don't think that, like I said before, I don't think we have to follow trends, and I don't think that it's healthy that certain trends are imposed. I choose not to follow these rules, but that's just because I never really felt that I needed to or wanted to, because I'm just happy. I don't want to spend 2 hours in the bathroom getting ready, so I use my creams or whatever. But I love creams, so I am a big fan of creams. So I do, but I also I take care of myself. I eat well. I drink a lot of water. I use sunscreen. Just the basic things that you need to just upkeep your body. So that you can live your life as comfortably as possible.
Could you give us, for example, one rule that you're willing to follow and one, on the contrary, that you would never follow?
Okay. I wear sunscreen, 50 SPF, every day, even in the winter, even when it's snowing, even when it's raining. I wear sunscreen and it's in my bag. That's one rule that I follow. One rule that I will never follow, well, you can't say never, and I don't want to judge, because it's not my place to judge. But for myself, I would never have an operation to change the way my face looks.
Becoming a public figure means that you're constantly analyzed. People look at you all the time, and when you first enter the public eye, it can be strange, and you can receive a lot of comments and criticism, and some people have to adapt, but they have difficulty to do so. Have you ever had such a hard time to adapt to that kind of situation?
I've been very fortunate in this industry. I think it's also because I started at my age. I was 52 when I started. I have rarely had any negative criticism, to my face at least, maybe behind my back. And but I am also someone who accepts criticism. If it's done in the right way, if it's, if I can learn from it, why not? So I've never had the experience of having bad press, because when I go on a job or when I go somewhere, I've had people come up to me and say very nice things to me, ask to have a photo with me, and if I can, I'm more than happy to speak to them or take a photo, because how lucky am I to be doing what I'm doing and to get to do something that some people dream of. So I don't have anything bad to say about that. And I do know there has been a lot of discussions because I realize that I am maybe not the standard beauty from certain countries, but that doesn't bother me, the discussions, because this is why I chose to be in this industry. Is what really gets my energy going is being a part of that discussion, is being maybe a motor for that discussion. Because I think the only way things can change is when there are discussions and that there are people debating. And even if it's, some people might not consider, but it doesn't have to do with me. What it is I am challenging their ideals of beauty. And I'm maybe challenging the certain industries' ideals of beauty and how you should age and all that. And I think that's very interesting, and that's what makes me happy. And it makes me realize that I do have my place here to maybe have that point of pushing that discussion.
The writer, Joanne Didion, she started in Céline at the age of 80 for their ads. And as a latecomer to the fashion industry, do you somehow feel some similarity to her?
Well, when I was approached to work in this industry, and I have said this before, I was very surprised. I thought it was a joke, just because I didn't expect to have this question asked of me, considering my age. Because for me, models who are scouted are a lot younger than I am. So I think that was very interesting because I don't think there's an age to start any new adventure. I think it's about timing.
Absolutely.
The timing was just open and right for my entry into this industry. And so I think it has a lot to do about that. And I do believe in destiny. So I think that when you have an open heart and an open mind to different situations, then you can accept certain things that are put on your path, and you can take opportunity of things.
So we've seen Michelle Yeoh's speech at the Oscar for the Best Actress, and you said that it encouraged you because she said, "Don't let anybody tell you you are ever past your prime."
Right.
What's prime to you?
Yes. Well, I think what she meant was also, especially in this industry, in the movie industry, entertainment industry, there has been in the past this idea that after a certain age you are past your prime. It's like, when you go to the supermarket, you look at the expiration date, right? And even with yogurts, I've learned that even if it's expired, you can still, eat them up to it. I remember Michelle Yeoh when she was a James Bond girl. I was like, whoa, James Bond girl, Asian, and she wasn't the one. She was like a superhero. I remember that when I was younger when that came out. No, her Oscar speech really touched a chord because I think it's very important that society realizes that there is no expiration date. Expiration date is out of everyone's hand. Expiration date is when you're not here anymore and you're in
6 feet under.
Right, 6 feet under. And so that was, I thought that was very cool.
So, do you think, can you say that right now it can be your prime?
Well, I think that word can be taken in different ways, right? Past your prime is also where you're your best self, right? Being your best self, I thought I was my best self when I was 20. You can also be your best self at 30, 40. There is no ideal age to be your best self. It's continuous. Yes. For me, it's I'm thinking I'm even going to be here when I'm 70 and doing what I'm doing. Why not? If I'm in good health and if I'm still having fun, I think that there is no prime. it's just, it's prime when you want it to be prime, I guess, I don't know. But I don't believe that there's a prime age to do anything. There shouldn't be.
It's a journey, it's a constant evolution.
Yes.
So you talked about the fear of aging, and it seems to be getting popular these last few years in the popular culture. Do you think we need to establish a new set of languages to describe the fact of getting old?
I don't know if you need a new set of language, but I do feel that the more inclusive different areas of media are, the more it will just be part of the way life is. So why do you need a language? I think it's just, just stop doing blah, blah, blah. Just do it.
Exactly.
Just have more diversity, have more scripts that are written by people telling their story. Have women that look like me in more media, visual images and whatever, or people that don't look like me, but I think that just by doing it and by being, having it exposed on a regular basis will already change the way people see things.
Yeah, and it's also said that it's always women who get subjected to that kind of criticism.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's why we need more women in higher roles.
Yeah, this question, because you lived in very different places, very different environments. Do you think cultural differences have influenced your worldview and life choices, or again, not really care?
It's not that I don't care. I think that I've only lived in countries where you can't really complain. So I don't have this comparison. The only way I can compare is, and once again, I didn't grow up in a family that had, super easy time. But I didn't live in a country that was in war. I didn't live in a country, that had famine. So I can't really, complain about anything. I think that, yes, French brought a lot of things to me, like appreciating the meal with your family. Whereas in America, I did appreciate having this freedom, to just about living. There are things that I took from growing up in America and living my adult life in France that are a combination, that are within me, and it's a combination. What it is exactly, I don't really know, because I didn't consciously pick, it's just whatever felt right. And, I try to be a good person, so it's about taking what you feel works for you and being able to transmit it, to the people that you meet.